Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 9th Annual Short Circuit Pacific Rim Film Festival. My name is David Geis, Executive Director of CineVic Society of Independent Filmmakers. CineVic acknowledges and respects the long history of the ļekwəŋən-speaking people, now known as the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations, as well as the ʷəŋən First Nation, on whose traditional and unceded territory we carry out our activities. The colonial name for this region is Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada, and our headquarters is in the city of Victoria, where I'm coming to you live right now. CineVic is an artist-run society supporting independent filmmakers and media artists with accessible programming, affordable equipment, professional development resources, and cinematic exhibition opportunities since 1991. Short Circuit is our annual showcase of short films from over 30 countries around the Pacific Rim. This year is our biggest festival ever, with 50 films streaming on demand until May 31st. Our final film program was just released today. 10 filmmaker Q&As, and for the locals in Victoria, we've got an outdoor mini cinema with all the films running 24/7 in Odeon Alley, also known as Millie's Lane, just a few doors down from CineVic HQ on Yates Street. We also have the 5th edition of our CineSpark program coming up, the live pitch event on Wednesday, May 19th at 7 p.m. Pacific time, 1 week from tonight. This year's top 5 screenwriters will pitch their short film ideas to a panel of judges, and one winner will walk away with a production package of cash, equipment, and resources valued at over $17,500, courtesy of CineVic, William F. White International, and Moto Car Share Co-op. Check out all the info for the festival, get your tickets, watch the films, see more Q&As, and the CineSparks pitches at shortcircuitfilmfestival.com. We're proud to be setting a new standard of sharing ticket sales equally with all of our filmmakers, so please help us spread the word and support artists around the world. Big thank you to our funders real quick here: Canada Council for the Arts, BC Arts Council, Province of British Columbia, CRD Art Service, and a new sponsor this year, Telefilm Canada. This year we're broadcasting our filmmaker Q&As live on YouTube, where we are right now. So questions will be through the chat box. If you don't see the chat box, make sure you click either the live chat or the show chat button somewhere on your screen here. If you're not logged into YouTube, it might ask you to create a channel in order to participate in the chat. And basically that's just setting up your screen name so you can participate. Type your questions in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them. Be aware that your question and screen name may be selected to appear on screen. And please also include the name of the filmmaker to whom you're directing your question, just so we know who to ask. The recording of this video will stay up on YouTube after we're done here today. So if you like what you see, please remember to like, subscribe, and share this video with the world. So now to introduce our filmmakers. From the screening program, HAIDA GWAII to Hawaii, showcasing the work of Indigenous land and water defenders from HAIDA GWAII to Hawaii, and maybe a few places in between. First up, we've got Stephen Thomas Davies, director of Our Changing Worlds, coming to us from Victoria, ļekwəŋən territory. At least I believe you are, yes? Perfect.
Yes.
Stephen
Yep.
is a Coast Salish filmmaker who was born and raised in the traditional territories of the ļekwəŋən-speaking peoples, now known as the Songhees and Esquimalt, also ʷəŋən territory and the Salish Sea. He makes films and media art that center spiritual, cultural, and political themes to reconnect with Indigenous histories and epistemologies to educate himself and share with others. Welcome, Stephen. He's also going to be taking over the reins of moderating. So we'll see you again in a few minutes here. Thank you, Stephen. Next up, Ciara Lacey. Hello, Ciara.
Aloha.
Director of This Is the Way We Rise, currently coming to us from Portland, Oregon, although usually would be in Hawaii. But yes, you're coming to us from Portland. Ciara is a Kanaka Maoli native Hawaiian filmmaker whose interest lies in crafting films that use strong characters and investigative journalism to challenge the creative and political status quo. Her work has shown at festivals around the world, including Sundance and Berlinale, as well as on Netflix, PBS, ABC, Al Jazeera, and the Criterion Collection. Great to have you here.
Aloha. Thank you for having me. I'm grateful to be part of this incredible showcase. So thank you.
Awesome. Great. See you again in just a minute. Next up, Steve Sxwithul'txw. Welcome, Steve, director of Finding the Balance, also coming to us from Victoria, ļekwəŋən territory. Hello, Steve. Steve is from the Penelakut tribe, located just off Vancouver Island, Canada. He was raised in the Cowichan Valley by his mother, along with 5 siblings. Steve's first short film was called Leave It on the Water, which screened right here at Short Circuit Pacific Rim Film Festival in 2019. He has directed and produced the Tribal Police Files on APTN, and he is also the lead for the development of the new Indigenous Walk of Fame. So watch out for that. Welcome, Steve. Alrighty. So just to kick things off here, like I mentioned, Stephen Davies has graciously offered to moderate the panel tonight. So I'm basically just going to hand things over to him. Here is Stephen. Here you go.
Hi, so hello everyone, and thanks for coming. I too would like to acknowledge and thank the Songhees and Esquimalt and Wasanish nations, upon whose territory I'm currently based and live and learn and play. Yeah, we've got a couple questions for Ciara to kick off the show here. Oh, wait a second, I see Our Changing Worlds. Perhaps it's me. I'm answering some questions here about our show. First of all, I'd like to give a few more thanks to Michelle Washington, who graciously collaborated with me on this piece and came in a little bit towards the end of the film process. I'd also like to acknowledge Short Circuit and CineVic, of course, who have also screened some of my previous work. But the question has been raised by David about the host and narrator in this piece. And so I just wanted to kind of like shine some light on Michelle, who's been a great friend throughout a number of years, but she has an immense cultural understanding and relationships in many of the communities across the province, but especially in the southern Vancouver Island region. And you know, it's relationships are really important in all of my work. So you know, she had an amazing way of making it really fun as well, but also tying it into the old ways and teachings in many respects during a pretty challenging time, given COVID was a little bit unnerving, especially entering in communities and visiting elders' homes. So it was quite an undertaking, and I was very happy to finish or to end this project and with nobody being affected or impacted by COVID directly. So I'd also like to thank Jessica Salt, Jerry Ambers, Daniel Carruthers from CineVic, who is the camera operator, and David Malashef, who operates Gamut Productions, was very generous with the visuals, the drone footage, and Talon Pickett as well generously offered his music. It was sponsored by Canada Council of the Arts, David Parfit, Mike Wavercam, Ron Sam, and also wanted to just note and say thank you. I hope you're watching, although I'm not so sure. David was wondering earlier about how the film kind of came to fruition. And if I was working on something similar. I think, you know, a lot of my projects are interrelated because they're so relationship based, and I could be working on a number of projects at the same time. But mostly, you know, and it is very conversational too. I feel like it's a co-authored approach too in many regards, a lot of my work and documentaries. So, you know, the answer is actually the importance of this short film came about through conversations with the leaders and knowledge keepers who are featured in the film, who I haven't mentioned because I'm hoping you'll see them in the credits as well. You know, Lorna Williams was one of the first conversations that I had, and really validated the importance of contributing, of preserving and sharing, you know, Indigenous voices and perspectives during this time of immense change and challenge around COVID. So, you know, it kind of just, most of my projects begin with conversations in the communities and with people who, you know, want to have a voice or want to be amplified, I guess, through the process. But I should also note that you know, it was validated by both the participants, but also there were a number of incidents, unfortunately, across Vancouver Island, which really brought the racism to light against Indigenous folks and communities. So that kind of was another, you know, unanticipated validation through this work. Moving on to another question here from David, noting the historical context that's given by Dr. Lorna Williams at the beginning of the film. You know, when I first reached out to her, she shared this very emotional story about the villages and the messengers between villages. So, you know, I thought that that really belongs front and center in the forefront, to give the audience sort of an understanding of what's at stake, but also, you know, for maybe even, you know, larger communities and audiences to get a better understanding of a potential loss of the transmission of knowledge, particularly, and how traditionally that was shared in many respects. You know, in ceremonies and dances and songs are still being practiced, which is quite contrary to the Western narrative, which I don't need to go into. I think people understand that. And I'm just going to check into the. I'm reminded I should go over these questions. Right. Okay. So sorry, Ciara, about this, but I'm going to come back to you. I'm trying to navigate through this. So hi, thanks for waiting.
Hi, aloha, no worries.
Great. So can you tell us a little bit about the intentions of your film?
Yeah, the original, this film, This Is the Way We Rise, is part of a collection of short films about the artistic process for like artists of color. It was work that was brought together by Firelight Media, which is a US organization that supports filmmakers of color creating content for the public television space. So long story short, the film was supposed to just be about the creative process, and it was a film that had, you know, I was excited to plan and script it out in advance, and real life happened, and the film itself ended up connecting the creative process to our contributions and connections to our community as Indigenous and Native people. And it was not the anticipated journey, but I think, you know, a journey that I was grateful to be a part of.
Right on. Excellent. Yeah. Did you have an idea of using Jamaica's poetry? Was that kind of, did that come at the early stages of the development, or?
Yeah, from the very beginning, I was interested in working with Dr. Osorio because I am a fan of slam poetry. I'm a fan of poetry as a whole, and Hawaiians and Hawaiian language itself is incredibly poetic. I thought it would be interesting to introduce an Indigenous artist that, you know, the ethos of poetry still taps into what is Hawaiian, but with slam poetry is not necessarily in a way that one might expect. It's not a traditional art. And so kind of stepping us into a different space as, you know, and presenting, you know, one of our people in a different way. That was always at the front and center of the work. And even when we were thinking about how we would shoot it, from the very beginning, we thought about shooting the piece split screen and engaging with that like device, because poetry is non-binary and is built on simile and metaphor. And we thought, what a cool way to visually express that by combining images and hopefully saying something something new or interesting in that with using that device.
Yes, yeah, I really enjoyed the split screen, and minor motions too, wasn't it? You kind of matched some of the movements of shots, and then with text as well, both reversed upside down or upside down mirrored. It was beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, it was that's a testament to our many editors, one of which Nathan Caswell came in and did a pass for split screen. So we did one pass with our first editor, Adi, and Adi like cut it for story, and then we did another pass for the visuals of it. And then our DP, Chapin, and I spent the last section just kind of like, or the last round of cutting, just refining the visuals and our graphics.
Right on. Yeah, it feels like there's more going on here than just a story about defending the land. Can you speak to a couple of the other themes that kind of drove you to complete this work?
Wow. What are they? No, it's a good question. And sometimes when you make the work, you're not even aware of what comes out of it, if that makes any sense. Like, you're so stuck in details. And I think the fun of it is recognizing other people, like people get all kinds of responses and reactions to the work that I might not even think of. So other things that I was thinking about, you know, what it means to be Hawaiian and gender, you know, what it means to identify not as a Hawaiian and what makes us us, and just thinking about, and I don't know if this totally answers your question, how to be creative and what is creative and the myth of creativity. You know, I'd like to think I was creative all the time, but I think, you know, but those moments where we hit a roadblock or we're not sure, you know, just embracing that and knowing that is part of the journey too, and it's okay. Not that it's about shame, it's about finding things that inspire and drive us. And I think as Native Indigenous people, we're driven or, you know, connected to our contributions to our community. And so it's not surprising that, you know, we find in the film her creativity is reignited by what she has to say for her people.
Awesome. Right on. Yes. It has I noticed just kind of a strong investigative journalistic kind of feel to it. Would you use that to describe the work? And how long did that process take for you?
I think a lot of, you realize that, I mean, if we're going to call it out, like erasure, right? So many of us don't know the history and whether we're non-Indigenous or Indigenous. And I think if we talk about the research or the investigative part, like, you know, providing some of the information about what's going on and being there front and center, but also like just making sure we're starting with a foundation and an understanding of what the history is. Because if you don't know what's happened before, you don't understand what's happening now. And I think about that more and more about how I communicate the state of my community, because so many people just don't know. And then it's like, oh, Hawaiians are just complaining. And if you know the history, then you recognize it's not a complaint. That is it, or you recognize that there is justice that people need, and there's something deeper than a complaint. It's history and how we address and write our histories.
Excellent. So so how much time or how much footage did you have, and was this a huge process?
No, it's actually a really interesting question, because there's so much split screen in the film just from that perspective, that if we put all of the footage end to end that's used in the film, it's actually going to lands probably around 40 minutes, 45 minutes. And so you get a lot of information on the screen in the film that you might not realize you're getting when it's only, you know, a 12-minute piece. So you're literally getting like 2 to 3 times more content than you realize, or 3 times plus more content than you realize. And then, oh my gosh, I just wandered. I apologize. Can you remind me the question?
It's okay. Yeah, you're talking about the amount of footage that you had, and you know, and basically the use of split screen too, that you're communicating, you have multiple kind of narratives, visual narratives going on.
Yeah. Yeah, it was there's a, and then in terms of like what we actually shot, I usually shoot everything, you know, with the same team, but there was so much going on at the time that a lot of what you see is not shot by me. It is a collaboration between other Hawaiians and other community filmmakers who were generous and kind enough to collaborate and license or share their footage with us. And, you know, that's not always the case, particularly as filmmakers. It's, I think the generosity is the ethos of how Mauna Kea and the protection of Mauna Kea makes us better. And I learned a lot from that. You know, if it's about what's good for the community, then we share, and we share in every way, whether it's the food we're eating there or the footage that we've shot. So, you know, this project was a collection of like a lot of things from a lot of people and a lot of places, and my gratitude to everyone for making it possible.
Excellent. Right on. Yeah, I guess, you know, I just had one last question, maybe, you know, about, you know, some of those locations and the actions were quite intense. And, you know, I guess I'm wondering about, you know, your role too as a storyteller and how that has fueled. Do you feel that's also fueled some of the participants in those actions?
Interesting. I think that, and this might not be directly what you're asking, but it's related. I think as Hawaiians, we approach the protection of Mauna Kea with the phrase we call kapu aloha, which is we hold boundaries, and we pursue the protection with everything that aloha means. Love, respect, like so many things, but also recognizing that, you know, and peacefully, you know, with resistance, but without violence. And I think for those that watch the film and see the efforts that were put into the protection, like what people were willing to risk and put on the line, the hope is that we see this and we know that there are things worth fighting for. If someone's feels like it's worth fighting for this in that way, then there must be something meaningful of this to this place, that there is something powerful there, that it's not for no reason. And to see the volume and collection of people doing it, you know, my hope is that the film helps others who might not understand what's going on there to understand and connect through Dr. Osorio's story. And for those who connect with the issue, it helps to continue to fuel the fires of the protection, because it's a marathon. You know, the efforts we do for our land and our people, it's a lifelong journey. And if there's anything worth doing, it's that.
Right on. Yeah, I see. You know, the revitalization of your language too is a strong, you know, theme in the work too, and just in speaking with you. Do you find that has that journey been at the same time?
Oh, in terms of language revitalization, I think it's even in my own life. You know, my mother was part of the generation that unfortunately suffered the gap, right? So it was always a source of pride when we'd have like family gatherings. Ciara, speak in Hawaiian. Ciara, say something in Hawaiian before we eat. You know, can you do the blessing for our food? And that was because our language was so prized, because at that time when I was growing up, there weren't that many speakers. And now we see someone like Dr. Osorio, who, you know, learned in school, but at a very young age to speak our language. And I would consider her like the kind of native speaker that I might not have envisioned possible when I was little. And so it is a true testament to what our community has been able to do to bring back our language, and there are so many more speakers. So, you know, the shortcomings or the pain of growing up and not knowing if you, like, not really knowing your language or being ashamed of it. Like, I see so many people today who don't have that it's theirs. And I hope, you know, that opportunity is available for more and more of us. And hopefully what my mother experienced in her generation, that's not something that the future has to worry about anymore.
Right on. Awesome. Yeah. So how are we doing for time? You mentioned you might have to leave us a little earlier.
Yeah, I apologize, but I'm so grateful to everybody, like, thrilled to be a part of this, and always grateful to be able to connect with other Native filmmakers, artists, audiences, and talk about our work, and in a variety of ways. So thank you for this opportunity.
Right on. Yeah, it's been a real pleasure. And maybe just in the last moment here, do you have time to talk about what you're working on next, or what you're working on now?
Yeah, I am working on my first animated short film about Queen Liliuokalani in her sunset years, and her connection to the little girls at the school next to where she lived out the rest of her life. And I am working on a film called The Ninth Island. It's a longer form documentary talking about the economic difficulties of keeping Native Hawaiians in Hawaii.
We look forward to seeing that. Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, me too. The work is very slow, so, you know, it's gonna take a minute, everybody, but I look forward to the chance to be as hopefully I'm sure many of us understand. But yeah, I look forward to getting it out there in the world sometime soon.
Right on. Well, it's been a real pleasure, and yeah, thanks again for your film and for the talk tonight.
Mahalo Yaoko. Thank you, and have a beautiful evening.
Haichka. Okay, so now we are on to Steve Sxwithul'txw, Finding the Balance. Hi, Steve.
Hey, how's it going today?
Good, good. So yeah, do you have a few minutes here to talk about your latest work?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me, and thank you to Short Circuit Pacific Rim Film Festival. It's great to be on the docket with all these talented filmmakers. You know, Finding the Balance. It's my second short film that I've embarked on in 2020. Filmed, of course, during COVID times. It's funny how ideas in the creative process, how things kind of just land on your lap. And, you know, this one kind of did. It was actually through a request from my sister, who works for Beach Bay First Nation, and they wanted to do a commercial video on this wonderful program. And this program was about how they're initiating these divers from their community to train as divers, first of all, and then get them in the waters to start documenting what's happening underneath in the sea. You know, and they were wondering if I was interested in highlighting this work. And so as I was in the meeting, of course it was a Zoom meeting, and listening to the passion and the direction that they wanted to go and why it was so important. You know, myself being co-Salish, and I'm sorry to introduce myself totally, I will in a minute. Being co-Salish and listening to this nations adamant about protecting their own waters, it just, you know, really, I was like, wow, this is a great story. And not only should it just be for the nations, but I need to show this to the world, because this is something really unique here in southern Vancouver Island, and something that they should take pride in. And it's an important project, and it's an important movement, I guess, because a lot of our people are working to protect their resources. And the sea is, in particular, in Coast Salish territory and along the coast, all up and down British Columbia. A lot of our areas, our waters are sacred. That's where we get our sustenance, our food. So I thought it was really important, based on those principles, that we moved this into a film. So I did one cut of a corporate video, and then I did a cinematic version of Finding the Balance. And you know, it was great. And it's again about divers who, from these 4 communities on southern Vancouver Island, are working to protect their own water. So, and they employed youth from the community, young people, to go to school and become commercial divers, which, you know, I make it sound easy, but they went for months and months and months of hard work and learning how to do this skill underwater, breathe underwater. So it was a labor of love, but it was something, you know, that I love being out on the water. My first short film was Leave It on the Water, so I guess I'm becoming a water filmmaker. We had to hire somebody to go underwater, which was really great. We had Dale Saunders, a cinematographer. We hired him to go underneath and film the divers, which was great. I've never really gone that far and was able to see. Of course, I'm on the boat, but I can't see. It's one of the challenges of kind of directing somebody underwater. You can't really communicate, so it was something different. So, but you know, we got everything that we needed. But it was always a learning experience. Every time you get into these situations, you just don't know what you're going to come up with until you see the final viz. But you know, as a veteran, we managed to get, you know, everything we need. So it was a really cool experience. And I believe I only shot like 4 or 5 days last summer. So it was enough to tell this 15-minute story of these nations' movement to protect their territorial waters.
Neat. Yes. I see some kind of similar themes in a few of your previous works too. There's a lot of crossovers there, I imagine. Can you speak to that at all, or would you like to?
Yeah, and it's something I'm realizing, and as I continue on in this adventure of storytelling, is that it is becoming themed on you know, the positivity of what our people are doing, which is one of the reasons I got into filmmaking. Is that, you know, I worked in news, and as a journalist, we're responding to stories on the fly, and if the stories involved First Nations, it was somehow mostly negative, and it kind of turned me off of journalism, and I just didn't want to do it. I wanted to tell stories with an Indigenous lens, and that's what I've been able to do. So that was one plateau I always achieve in all my work, and it's really important for me to showcase to, you know, all viewers, especially the youth, that there is positivity in our culture and our practices and our traditions and our language. And we've had a rough go, but you know, we're turning that corner now, and we want to be able to highlight those positive stories so our kids can have heroes, so our kids can have people that they look up to. So it's really important for me as a filmmaker to highlight that. So and that's what I'll continue to do, and a lot of it seems themed around, you know, water for me, and that's what I love. You know, I love being out on the water, and I love telling stories about the water. So you know, I'll continue to do it when the opportunities arise. But yeah, it's those similarities keep popping up as I move forward. Actually, yeah, here's the funny thing. I just got approved for another series. I'm almost there, but and it's remarkably, it's on the water again. So it's a realization that's happening as I'm talking about it. So yeah, that's kind of my thing.
Right on. Yeah, we you know, I noticed that you're using a lot of devices too through this short film that you know, could be considered somewhat experimental, maybe, with the use of maps and animations and you know, a variety of different kind of aesthetics and styles, including music. Can you comment on that at all?
Yeah, it was, you know, I've got a great post team, and always trying to find ways to engage the viewer as we're going through the story. and using those aesthetics, those graphics, to really showcase the work and give it more meaning, if you will, in the moment, as we're laying out, each visual. It's important message for the viewer to advise them, let them know that these are the areas that I would like to take them. This is the road or direction I'd like to bring them, and that there is thought behind this, there is science behind this, and in terms of the subject. And I just thought it was really important that the graphics really carry some of the story, and that's something that I'll continue to do. And it's it's Piso 2 Media, which they're just amazing. So I love working with Mike and Jordan, and they really, as storytellers as well, we really work well together and are able to bring out the best in terms of the subject that we're highlighting.
And on, did you have to make any last minute adaptations based on COVID, or did that increase the length of your days or shoots?
Well, with COVID, for those filmmakers and producers that film during COVID, it's a real learning experience, so especially early on, and being able to develop your own protocols with your company and who you are as a person, in terms of following the guidelines, are critically important. You want to keep everybody safe. The last thing I want to do is put somebody in jeopardy in terms of their health while we're filming. So we followed all the guidelines. My own company has strict guidelines that adhere to and surpass the BC health standards that has been laid out by Dr. Bonnie Henry. So at times we become so focused on that we kind of take the work out of our hands, where we become so GoPro centric that we just put the GoPro in and I hope this comes out the way we hoped, and go for it. So it's really changing, and will continue to change as long as we have this virus around, about how we process our thoughts in terms of putting something together. So it's again another unique learning experience, which has benefited me for the better as we move into mid 2021, but moving into 2022 for sure.
Excellent. Could you talk a little bit more about what's next for you and your company? Are you working? You mentioned a series that you're.
Yeah, for sure. For many years, I think since 2014, I've been doing this series called Tribal Police Files on APTN. It's been great show. I've loved it. It's being sunset after season 3, which is in post at the moment, so that'll be coming out later this year. But there's always light at the end of the tunnel, and I was able to put together another pitch and get greenlit by a broadcaster, which is APTN, for a show called Ocean Warriors. It's a 13-part series, half hour, and it highlights the work of our Indigenous mariners on BC's coast. Several tragedies that occurred up and down BC's coast over the years has highlighted the need for a quicker response from Coast Guard. Coast Guard wasn't always able to get there on time, but our BC First Nations know these waters inside and out for thousands of years, and 90% of the time they're the first responders in the area. So government thought, well, maybe it is time to fund our First Nations in the area and train them and give them the resources that they need to be able to respond to these incidences. So we were able to secure a license, and with the hope of following these young mariners as they learn, develop, build their own life-saving techniques in their communities, and they're able to respond at a moment's notice. Mission ready is their theme, and they're up for the task in multiple areas, 5 or 6 areas along BC's first coast we're going to be highlighting, and we'll be going underwater. We'll be talking about historic ship sinkings and going underwater, and of course going on land and talking to the elders, getting backgrounds of these particular peoples in various areas such as Kidisu and Bella, near Fort Hardy, and near HAIDA as well. So we're going to be going to multiple locations, and that's going to be expanding, but I'm really excited about what we're going to be able to see and the natural beauty of BC's coast. I'm sure we're going to be able to highlight, and of course, storytelling with our elders is always part of my theme in promoting language in these various areas as well. So I'm really looking forward to getting out there, but we do have one more step to complete the green light, I guess, if you will, in terms of our funding. So that's coming up very shortly. And hopefully we'll be shooting later this summer.
Wow, very, very timely. So happy to hear that. That's great. It's an important story that's got to get out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Reminds me of the Frank family in a house as well. Was that tragedy 3 years ago or 4?
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly that. One of those stories that we're going to be highlighting in that, was it the Fabian tragedy, I think, and as well the BC ferries, and they have one of the elders that went missing there a while back as well. So yeah, so those kind of challenging stories, but being able to be able to tell the story in a way that is respectful of the trials and tribulations of being a first responder, an Indigenous first responder on BC's coast, rescuing people, assisting other agencies in either bringing somebody back or recovery missions, whatever it might be. These guys and women are going to be top-notch trained, and we really look forward to highlighting their work.
Wow, it seems like it could really highlight the sovereignty too of the nations on the seas.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think there's no doubt that sovereign nations in BC and across Canada need to be highlighted a lot more. So it's really bringing them into light. Like, a lot of people don't go to these very remote communities, and I want to be able to highlight that to people, to know how beautiful the community is, and the people are, and the elders and the youth are. And that's really an important part of my producing and directing, that knowing that we're important, and we're there, and we're here to help, and we have a lively life, and we love it that way. And most people might not understand why people live off in these islands, and you have to take a half-hour, 1-hour boat ride or fly in by plane. But once you get there, and it's so pristine, and you can hear the ravens and the eagles and see the seals, and it's just phenomenal. So I just can't wait to showcase this, and it's really going to be an exciting project.
Are we going to get to see you go underwater then, maybe?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Probably not. No, those days are over. Maybe in a blooper reel or something. Yeah, sure.
Right on. That's awesome. Okay. Was there anything else you wanted to share before we have a send off here?
I think I've covered everything. Again, just happy that Short Circuit's showcasing my film, and just happy to be a part of this.
Right on, Steve. That's great. David, thank you.
I'll just jump in then and do the part of, I guess, asking you, Stephen, the same question, which I don't think you covered earlier. Didn't ask yourself the question of what's next for you? What are you working on next, or now?
I'm working on an experimental hybrid documentary right now. So I'm painting things, and I'm building a small maquette to experiment with sort of some 3D and 2D as well as interviewing people.
Wow, awesome! Is that your first time working with sort of, I guess, puppetry and that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's the second time.
Okay.
Although I worked on a series, Tiga Talk for APTN, which was was a puppet show, a children's series. So not totally unrelated.
Of course. Well, I guess the first thing that comes to my mind is the work of Amanda Strong, but not to sort of compared to that,
Absolutely.
because that stuff is like so exquisite. But at least it's I mean, it's probably some inspiration, and geez, I'd love to have more submissions of films like that in the future for Short Circuit. So please submit once it's finished, and hopefully we can all see it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I'll bring back in Steve, and just, yeah, I guess last chance to kind of throw anything in if you want. Otherwise we'll say goodnight to everyone out there in TV land. Any last words? I'm going to unmute you, Steve. Unmute yourself. For some reason, I can't unmute you. There you go.
I always mute myself. I apologize. Just thanks for having me, and thanks for the viewers that are out there. Please support Indigenous filmmakers and storytellers, especially in smaller markets. It's really important that we have our young people tell our stories and continue to be able to teach those stories and give them the means to do so. And that's something that's really important to me.
Awesome. Ditto that.
Yeah, and I should also say, what an honor it is to be selected amongst so many other great filmmakers, including Steve, who's a mentor of mine, but as well as Chris Octor and everyone else, and the entire festival is incredible. It's great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, we should mention there were a couple of filmmakers who couldn't make it tonight. Chris Octor, director of Now Is the Time, Kyle Perrone and Nico Cernio from Guam, our first Guam film. But they're so busy working on their next project, they couldn't tune in tonight. They're directors of I Matai, translated to The Dead, and Jelena Keen-Lee, also from Hawaii, Standing Above the Clouds, another film from Hawaii in the same program. So thoughts go to them as well. They just couldn't attend tonight, but I'm sure they're busy making more projects. All right. Well, thanks again to both of you. Thanks to Stephen as well for taking on the moderating reins here. And yeah, check out the films. We still got a couple of weeks till the 31st to stream these films. And they're also playing in downtown Victoria, just off of Yates Street in Odeon Alley, if anybody's hanging around Victoria. All right, so for the 100th time, thank you. Thank you both. Thanks to the viewers.
Thanks, David.
Watch the films, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Steve. Great job.
Have a great night.
Alrighty. Good night, everybody.